Good afternoon, and I have a very amazing panel today. And the topic for our panel is basically, I don't know why we call it a gamble. This is a historic opportunity. It's called they have kept it great digital gamble. But I won't call it a gamble. I'll say the great digital opportunity. And that's the difference. And in last 2 years, all of us have seen that, especially for me, who has been into courts and litigation or in the corporate war rooms, that digital is the biggest differentiator between a very big economy, a small economy, developing economy, and maybe India was more prepared in comparison to some other countries, and our excellence and our robust digital infrastructure came very handy for this kind of crisis. So I will call it a great digital opportunity. Whether it's a gamble, whether we have to take precautions, or whether there are worries ahead, this great panel will decide. So I'll tell you who all we have. We have Mr. Rahul Nainani. Nainani, Mr. Rahul Nainani. He is the founder of Recircle. We have Pankaj, Sunwar, entrepreneur Amway. Yeah, Pankaj is related to Amway. He will talk about it. Mr. Prabhdeep Singh, founder and CEO, StanPlus Technologies. I had a brief opportunity to talk to him. And Mr. Amit Purohit, co-founder, Fantasy Akhada. So we have a very good wide representation. And I'll tell you that our model would be that I will ask each one of them to first start telling us that what is their digital differentiator, whether it's a gamble or an opportunity for them. We will start with you, Mr. Singh.
Definitely an opportunity. And I'm in the healthcare world. And in the healthcare world, more and more people are consuming their content. We are learning about healthcare online. I joke with my dad that they don't no longer rely on doctors, but on the WhatsApp forwards. So both the good and the bad side of things. But within healthcare, I believe the 3 C's of content, community, and commerce are here to stay. We'll speak more about it as we go ahead, but very, very bullish on the digital economy and healthcare's intersection.
Yeah, Pankaj. Sorry, I wrongly pronounced. Sorry.
Hi. Hi. So, of course, it is an opportunity for us. In fact, all that we do is all digital. So just to let everyone know, I run Fantasy Akada, which is a fantasy sports platform. So it's an all digital platform. All we do in terms of making people play, or in fact, for that matter, even acquiring people. Most of our marketing campaigns are digital. So, honestly, far from being a gamble, it is a mode of survival for us, digital. So I would definitely agree with your pivot of calling it the digital opportunity more than it.
So hi everyone. I would say digital would be an opportunity. I won't say it would be a gamble because digital is something like it has bridged the gap for us. Because being coming from a part of a country, it's a far northeast. I come from a state called Nagaland. I hope I was talking to him like he also does his business there in Nagaland. So connecting to my customers here in Delhi or other parts of the country. So digital is something which has really helped me to connect, and it has really bridged that gap, for me. So I would say digital is something like it has blessing in disguise. And I wouldn't say it is a gamble.
I think I echo the words from all the panelists today. I think the digital is definitely an opportunity. I work in the waste management sector, and most of the sector that we work in is largely informal and fragmented. When we launched 6 years ago, I don't think the entire informal sector, the scrap dealers and aggregators were very pro to get digitized in terms of managing, in terms of getting into a digital solution. But over the last 2 years, we've seen that with the pandemic coming in and them also realizing that digital is the way forward, where they've seen their local kirana guy, the cabbie, the florist, all getting digitized and getting opportunities online. they have also realized that the way forward for them is to work towards digitization. And for us also to make sure that we've been able to work towards our goal of circularity, traceability, and making sure that the entire supply chain is fully traceable, and collecting that data is a major source in terms of working towards our vision. And thereby, I believe that yes, digitization is an opportunity for us, not just in our sector, but of course, like rightly put by the other panelists, and all the other sectors that are there also. So, yes.
Okay, great. So we'll start with you, Mr. Singh. That in last 2 years, so when you started operating, when did you start this great ambulance service? It's a great concept. So maybe this was a terrific opportunity, the pandemic, for pharma companies, for healthcare, for hospitals. For the first time, their spreadsheet and their balance sheet looks attractive. So how good it is, and what are the some interesting facts you'll share of last 2 years in your journey?
Thank you so much for that. I would not lie. The pandemic has been a strong lever for a lot of healthcare companies who existed, right? A lot of fly-by-night operators also came in. But I believe that having experience of the industry for 5 years really mattered when the opportunity came, because we had to be there to be able to service at scale, because suddenly the volumes were 10x, right? The strain on the systems were 20x, but because many of our own employees were suffering because of the pandemic. Having said that, my heart goes out to all the families that suffered, and I am glad that we were able to contribute. A few factoids, as you mentioned. So the first death from COVID in India actually happened in one of our ambulances. It was March 12th, 2020. And we, though publicly are an ambulance company, but we are a tech-led medical response system. So we power the war rooms and the control towers for many multinationals. The phones that you hold, the colas that you drink, and the perhaps the rides that we take, all these large companies use us to power their war rooms. And pre-pandemic, it was all about emergency management. And suddenly it became concierge management. They trusted people like us more than they trusted their TPAs to find them a bed, because we are so integrated into the hospital system. So more and more large companies now are increasingly thinking that how can they build a war room internally and give it out to experts like us. This was a very international, companies like ISOS used to do this, but now we are at the forefront of creating those war rooms for large cores. And at the same time, we bring all the technology to enable hospitals to manage their medical response better. So if you call into top 50 hospitals in the country, those hospitals are not answering their emergency calls anymore. We are doing that. We are triaging the patient. We are sending the ambulance. StanPlus owns Red Ambulances, which is India's largest ambulance company. But at the same time, we power the systems that make hospitals transport and respond better to their patients. So before us, another fact, very important, WHO recommends that help reaches the patient in 12 minutes. An average hospital takes 15 minutes in India to get the ambulance out of its door.
How much you take?
We take 3 to 4 minutes. So
Wow.
our ETAs are 15 minutes
Wonderful.
consistently. So that's what we do, right? We are saying, I live in Hyderabad, but my parents are from Chandigarh. That's where I grew up. It's a 40-minute flight from Chandigarh to Delhi. 45 minutes is the average ETA of an ambulance in any city of the country today.
I know the value of ambulance when the Delhi was under lockdown.
Yep.
We as lawyers were exempted mostly because we were supposed to, I in fact was responsible for the oxygen bench which happened in Delhi High Court, because I was representing many hospitals and they were not able to do anything with regard to the oxygen. At that point of time, some of the interstate movement was happening on a premium in ambulances only for
Yep.
people who were in a crisis, because nothing else was going. So it was a great opportunity for you, but how you use it in future, because this pandemic will end eventually, and how you will make it a permanent business, that is something which we'll have to see. Wonderful. That's very, very good initial thoughts. I'll
Thank you.
come back to you. So what are your thoughts about fantasy? And especially if we see all the advertisements in cricket matches and otherwise, they are talking about gaming. And in last 15 days, crypto also has stepped in a big way. But before that, for almost 1 year, when everybody got their act together, I think the advertisements actually shifted to gaming in a big way. So how did all this happen? How did you start? And was this particular time of 18 months critical for you?
Like you rightly pointed out, in the last 1 year, the acceptance of the sector has gone up drastically. Uh, I would be lying if I believe and I say that we have done a lot to it. Actually, we've not. The market leader, Dream 11, has done a fabulous job of, raising acceptance of the industry in the eyes of the consumer as well as in the eyes of the regulatory bodies. So I personally believe that this phase has been really good for gaming companies in the last 18 months. Of course, like Mr. Singh was also pointing out, and although our business seems very frivolous in terms of the kind of good work that they do, but during this pandemic, there has been a lot of surge in terms of what traction we see on our platform. So while like he pointed out, our heart goes out to the families that have suffered, but I would say for a player like us who was starting up in Jan 2020, the pandemic did come across as a blessing in disguise for us who were just trying to set shop. Because I remember in Jan 2020 and in March 2020, when we were just getting our act together, we had very less fixed cost. That is when the IPL was about to happen. And I still recollect that if the IPL would have happened at that time, probably we were not as prepared as a brand should be, which is what we were when the IPL then happened in September, October. So, like I said, honestly, in front of what you do, it is very, very frivolous. But I still feel that, yes, it has been a blessing in disguise for us to allow us to find our feet in this ecosystem, as the market leader has done a very, very good job of making the brands in this ecosystem have a lot of acceptability in the market.
But Amit, one more thing has happened. Like I said, that our robust digital infrastructure, which we had for almost 10, 15 years now, came very handy with new boom, which is being seen.
Absolutely.
But there is a bigger thing which happened in your sector, that the Law Commission gave the report to the Supreme Court, where I was working with the All India Gaming Federation actually, and I'm their lawyer. So it happened in 2019 only by a coincidence, where they talked about the game of skill and game of chance. And the Supreme Court saw that and recommended to the government that you take care of it and frame rules. So you were at the right time with the right product.
So honestly, like I said, that and in our case, again, we wouldn't want to believe that we are innovating a lot or we are reinventing the wheel. Honestly, personally, for me as the founder, we were very clear that when in 2019 the regulatory environment became a lot clearer, that is when we could come with our idea of how we want to do it. This idea is not novel. It is not that it struck us in 2020 that let's launch a fantasy sports platform. The fantasy sports market is out there for everyone to see how it has grown. Honestly speaking, I personally, as the owner of this startup, felt more confident about doing this once the regulatory framework was much more
brilliantly said. Brilliantly said. So, what do you think about this, Pankaj? What is your feeling about this digital? Is it a gamble for you? And what Amway has to do with this gamble? Since they mentioned Amway, are you going to speak about that?
Yes. As you said, the gambling, like I won't say gambling, no, because if I have to go back in 2020, once the pandemic started, right, I can see some of the youngsters like whom I know in my place. They were losing jobs, like they were working here and they are coming back home, with nothing to do, right? And that's where the things got started for me, because that's the point of the time where we couldn't meet people. And that's the time we could leverage. Like I started leveraging our business and with the support of the Amway, right? Because Amway was already ahead. We were already into digital, right? And a state like Nagaland and the state like Manipur, the place where I'm working, right? It's the name of the place is Senapati. If I have to be precise where it is, it's around 150 kilometers away from the Burma border, right? Because I don't have that luxury, right, of that all the facilities, that the people have here.
What do you have? What you don't have? Do
Yes.
you have 5G?
If I have,
you have 4G?
Yeah, okay, let me,
I'll ask you rapid
I'll let
fire.
you, let me list it out with. First of all, in the place, Senapati, I don't have broadband. I have to rely on my 4G. The 4G itself is 4G, but it's just like 2G, right? For a YouTube, for a video in a YouTube for a 2 minutes, right? I have to wait for another 15 minutes for it get to buffer, right? When I do meetings, I go to the top of the terrace, right? I do this, but this with all the situations, right? But I made up a point that let me leverage the business with the help of digitalization because I conduct meeting. So I have to switch off my video because when I switch on my video, they can hear me. If I switch on my video, then they cannot hear me, right? So I won't say a gambling, but it was an opportunity for me to connect with more and more people, and that's where I could start leveraging the business, right? And I can see an exponential growth in my business in last 2 years. So I won't say a gambling.
Wonderful. Very well said.
Thank you,
Yes,
sir.
thank you. Thanks a lot. So what do you think, Rahul? How will you go about describing first? Tell us about it's something, your company's name is something like very close to circular economy. Like it comes to my mind and it has to do something to do with environment. You are a person who believes in the plastic recycling and other thing. So tell us how, for you, it was not a gamble. I can say because in 2019, we had almost like a feeling, and I'm sharing it with everybody, that we were expecting Prime Minister Modi to come on one evening at 8 o'clock and actually come and announce complete ban on plastics. That was the expectation in the month of September, when we were assisting many companies with the disposal of plastic issue. Suddenly comes COVID, and plastics takes its revenge, and revenge like never before. We have plastics everywhere, plastic cutlery, plastic bags. So how will you recycle in these times, and what is the business opportunity?
So, I mean, just to start with, I don't think that plastics is the problem. It's not the material itself. I personally believe that plastics is probably one of the best inventions of mankind in the 21st century. And the reason I say this is because without plastics, there wouldn't have been advancements in a lot of sectors. Leave aside the food packaging industry, but look at healthcare, look at automobiles, look at technology that is coming in. I think plastics is an integral part of most of the sectors that we are right now seeing that are developing. The challenge that lies is with the disposal or irresponsible disposal of the plastics itself. And the reason that, the biggest problem that we see with plastics is that once we dispose it off, it does not disintegrate into the environment, which is probably actually the best feature about it. The fact that it does not disintegrate, it can be recycled and can be put back into the ecosystem over and over again. With regards to coming to the circular economy part of it, I think the challenge is with waste as a whole is that there isn't enough data points to actually solve the problem. There is no reliable data set to actually figure out how much waste is coming, how much is actually getting leaked into the ocean, and how can we actually recover this, waste. So for us, I personally believe that digitization and creating traceable supply chains, reverse supply chains for plastic waste, for other kinds of waste, is a way for us to actually move towards a more circular economy than from the linear approach that we already have. And with the pandemic coming in, it's actually just acted as a catalyst where even when we work with large, because most of the waste actually gets managed from the informal sector, the catalyst has become where these guys have now got used to doing digital payments, using their phones digitally, and actually creating that traceability for the waste. So for us, we see that technology is a key enabler to ensure circularity is possible, to ensure that waste can be tracked from the source to the final, to the recycling and back into the supply chains of the big brands that we work with. So yes, I do see this as an opportunity going forward.
Very good. How do you say that, Mr. Singh? So which are the states where these ambulances have been accepted more? Which are the states where you will like to really make a difference? Because you are going leapfrogging in a sector where in general there is a catch-up happening. Like private healthcare is nil, dismal even now in most of the eastern part of the country. If we leave aside Maharashtra, Delhi, NCR, because I understand healthcare, that's why I'm asking you this. Which are the states you will find very challenging to grow?
The magic about everything digital is that it is without borders. And a lot of work that we are trying to achieve is direct to consumer that does not allow states or their frameworks to unnecessarily come in, right? But at the same time, we do want our people and our ambulances to arrive on patient stores on time and in full. So what we've seen is that the need is very apparent in metro cities, right? Because we believe that there's traffic and more patients. But to be honest, what we've realized where we make the maximum impact are tier 3 and tier 4 towns and below, because of lack of qualified medical institutions. A lot of patients end up coming to metros and urban centers. So that's where transportation becomes extremely important. So if I were to ask all of you here,
Yeah.
the biggest healthcare brand in India is actually not Apollo or Fortis, it's 108.
Yeah.
And village to village, city to city, 108, the emergency number, is used to transport patients more and more to urban centers, primary healthcare center to urban centers to tertiary care centers. So for us, the real challenge is actually not going state by state, because most of the metros are fairly homogeneous in how they behave. It's how do we tackle the transport that has to do with increasing clustering of healthcare facilities in urban centers. So a lot of patients need to be transported from rural. So how do we tackle a service that is virtually available for free, but at a very low quality? 108 is free across India, and yet there's huge amount of dissatisfaction there. So we are building our ecosystem, which is digital, that is tech enabled, and that is higher quality, but at a premium. So the question is now, how do we do that in rural?
No, I'm asking you, and I'm sorry, I'll go on because losing my father in 2015, and before that, there were two more deaths in the family. I had a very different kind of expression when I was going to Garhmukteshwar, which is very near to Delhi. There is a lot of haggling with the ambulance services. If you take a dead body to the cremation thing, where if your parents or your father wanted you to go to Ganga and you are traveling 80 kilometers, 100 kilometers. Now, these are the spaces where it's absolutely ad hoc. Like somebody will not understand your pain. They will not understand what you're going through. I remember actually discussing it, that somebody was asking 15,000 or other guy was saying 9,000. So there are many such spaces which are very unregulated, and they, like, who hires ambulance? A person who hires ambulance is already in a huge crisis. How do you deal with the emotional training of your people?
The bereavement part in the country is completely broken. That's what we call as a vertical at StanPlus. We have it as bereavement services. We are the largest transporter of mortal remains in the south of India today. And because we partner with hospitals where a lot of deaths are either occur or they, that's where they're announced, we naturally get to transport a lot of mortal remains. And you're absolutely right. It's a completely broken market. Each one of us here, everyone, despite our training, our skills, our education, can go and buy an ambulance today and become an ambulance operator. There is virtually no regulation. There is literally no know-how requirement. And when we came into the market, me and my co-founders, we were studying at France, and we decided to come into India and build this for India. Selfish reasons, I did it for my parents who are in Chandigarh. And I was shocked to know that the government does not want us to register or have any license before we create this. So, it's an informal sector, like a lot of sectors that we are discussing here. And we are trying very hard to bring harmonization, standardization, and price controls into this.
Yeah.
And to answer your question in brief, we are doing this by self-disciplining ourselves on the pricing. Even during COVID, we never increased our prices. And we are continuing to be the most self-disciplined, well-governed operator out there when it comes to pricing and price gauging.
Very well. Thank you. Amit, what do you think your company and many such company like Dream 11 have played in this very traumatic times, which you also mentioned in last 1.5 years, where people have been nervous, they have been indoors, They have all kind of insecurities, and it was not easy to remain motivated. A lot of my friends who are into this kind of, whether it's poker or fantasy sports, they really felt that it's not about opportunity alone. You have actually come up with an indoor program which was a healing thing in a way. Like we talked about the other extreme. I don't know why this panel is so uniquely balanced, but tell us, how do you, what is the lessons you have got in the pandemic in last 1 year since it has become a business for you, and where do you think it will really fulfill the emotional part also?
So it's a very interesting question that you ask, because I can vouch that no fantasy sports platform or gaming platform would have started the business thinking that I will make people pass their time in a different manner. I think most of them started for the unit economics of it and how it is a good, legal, scalable, and a profitable business now. But what we've observed in the last 18 months is that, and I'll give you a background about when we started out as a company. Our vision was very clear, and in fact, those who will follow us probably after this, or those who follow us, would know that we had started out as a sports tech organization. The intent was to always launch products in the domain of sports on the back of tech, and with an intention of driving sports engagement in the country. The idea was that, so I used to work at Star Sports before I started up, and I know that in India, if you were to divide the number of minutes that people consume sport to the number of people who watch sport, it's actually 2.5 minutes per week. So basically, eventually in India, we call ourselves a cricket crazy nation, and we call ourselves various names as far as cricket is concerned, but we are not even a cricketing nation, let alone a sporting nation. So our intention was that how can we make more and more people follow more sport? And if you do a deep dive, and if you even look at KPMG's research, fantasy sports came out to be the first lever, because, and it was very intuitive that the moment, even if you were to have a quick chat with your friend asking that aaj raat ko India New Zealand hai, to who will win? And if you say India and he says New Zealand, then there is a tendency to check in the evening ki hua kya match mein, right? So the same thing happens for fantasy sports. And what has happened over the last 18 months is that as there was a lot of grim, except for those 2 months when there was no sport happening, in last year, April and mid of May, for 45 days or 60 days, there was no sport happening at all, which is when at least we didn't have any business. People who run poker platforms or rummy platforms did still have business. But apart from those 2 months, we've been really happy with the fact that a lot of people have something to divert their mind to. And honestly speaking, this is not something that had come to our mind, but it is, we have a 24/7 help desk, and we see that at 3 in the night or 4 in the night, when there are matches in New Zealand happening, and there are users who are calling. There was one user who called on 31st December, and he called, and the customer care was slightly surprised because a call was not expected at that hour, and he just said that, you know, I've just called to wish you Happy New Year, because in the last 3-4 months you've really helped me, you know, take my mind away. And this is, I repeat, this is not what our intention was. Honestly speaking, we were businessmen, and we still are, and we intend to do that. But it's just good to see that it has helped by chance, and like I said, it was not by construct, but it has happened, which is good. At least we are playing a small part in whatever we can, and that's good to know.
Great, wonderful. So, how do you describe, Pankaj, the journey of digital in Nagaland, and where are we? Your difficulties of struggling with communicating your message, or even taking your products to remote areas. But where do you see this getting better? And where are the good part about now in especially Nagaland and other Northeast states? What are the good part of their catching up with the rest of the country on digital infrastructure?
All right. So if I have to start with the question, like, let me use these two words. One is physical, one is digital. If I combine these two words, then I'll say that physical, right? So wherein it goes hand in hand for us back there in our state, right? And if I have to see people out there around, there are an opportunity in one way. There are 40 to 60,000 unemployed youths now, right? Educated youths, right? And so during this time, right, digital has really helped me to get in touch with the youths, especially, right? Because they know how to handle their Instagram, they know how to handle their Facebook, right? So uh, I started my Instagram page where I was promoting my passion of being healthy, because in the year 2014, I was diagnosed by Guillain-Barré syndrome, where I was fully paralyzed. Okay, and that's where I started to give health the utmost interest in my life, right? And that's where, because I was 106 kgs some 3-4 years back, now I'm 84 kgs, right? So that's where I started to think that why not promote my passion, right, with the customer, or maybe with the youths who can resonate with what I do, and at the same time putting my, because Amway is into nutraceutical business, right? And people during this COVID, people started to realize that how important the health is, right? That's where I collaborated my health products, right? And I started leveraging with the help of digital platforms like Instagram, right? I started posting things, whatever I do each day, right? And that's how it made me quite prominent, and then it made me quite efficient to reach out to the youths, and that's where I started connecting with more and more youths. Now 60% of my team, right, in my organization are all 35 below, right? And that's how it has really given me that leverage in my business.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Wow.
And I just wanted to put up said that trust me, we don't have this fiber connection, right? In there in Senapati, right? There in Kohima, because it was very hard for me to connect digitally. But still, with whatever the 2G or 3G connection, they say 4G, but I would say it's 2G and 3G. we made sure with the help of digital, and it has really helped me in this 2 years time.
Okay, Rahul, I'll be asking you about the Prime Minister's statements in Glasgow, where he has made very big sovereign commitments on behalf of the country with regard to our reducing waste, also with regard to his commitment on coal and other stuff, which is for the first time a Prime Minister has done a commitment. Otherwise, our narrative had been all through till Paris that first you reduce your carbon footprints and then we'll follow. So there is now a time for you and a company like yours where sustainability will be a buzzword. Sustainability as a business will be a focus. So what are your plans now in the new focus? We have done well on lighting and other thing. We have done Ujjwala scheme. The only focus is that like waste disposal is a big issue and you are using technology to link up to that. What is your big game here now?
No, I think the Prime Minister's Swachh Bharat movement a few years ago, also coupled with a lot of policy changes that came in 2016, has already brought in a lot of movement in the sector, especially in the right direction. With the global commitments coming in, not just from the Prime Minister and our country, but also from the major corporates. As a part of the Ellen MacArthur Foundation, the leading 200 companies in the world, which are the largest polluters, have also made their sustainability development goals in terms of ensuring that 100% waste gets recycled that they produce, using recycled plastic in their supply chain. So there's definitely a lot of push that's coming in from the external factors, and rightly so. I think it's a high time where all the stakeholders need to play their part in terms of solving this issue. Where we come in, we totally believe that this is a collaborative effort. It's not one player in the ecosystem actually that can solve the waste issue. We understand that there are multiple small and large stakeholders, and all of them need to play their part to ensure that this larger issue of waste management gets solved. Where we see ourselves fitting in is to be able to create the connection between the various stakeholders and ensure that resources. So we don't like to call ourselves a waste management company. We like to call ourselves as a resource recovery enterprise, primarily because it is not waste if it gets recovered, and it is a resource. So what we see it is that we play a connecting role between the consumers to help them dispose responsibly through our platform, the producers to actually make them more sustainable and more responsible as a business, and plug those two together to ensure that resources flow through through our digital platform, and get recycled and is put back into the supply chain. When I say that, I mean, imagine you buying this bottle of water over here, which comes to us as an organization. We recycle this and give it back to the company which is producing it, so that we reduce not only the effort towards natural resources that we're using, because plastic is then made out of oil to start with. So if you're reducing the effort on the natural resources that we're consuming, and at the same time polluting the environment much lesser. So with all the other commitments, I feel that our role comes in to connect the dots of the various stakeholders and work towards a more circular ecosystem.
And which are the states you are already very active, and which are the states where you'll go?
So we are right now working in 35 cities across the country. Largely, we are covering north, northeast, central India, western India. South is something that we haven't touched, primarily because they're already doing a great job. So our focus is to work towards where we can create a larger impact. And we thought that
More unruly, you want to say?
well, they have been doing. South has definitely been a leader in terms of managing. So Kerala, Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, and there are already some players that are doing some great jobs. So our work was to not redo the effort that they're doing, but rather to create impact where we can actually see it happening.
Wonderful. Mr. Singh, I'll take final words now, 1 minute each. So you can tell us that where do you see yourself? Yesterday, Vijay Shekhar Sharma, when people questioned the debut on the stock exchange, he said, don't talk to me for now, wait for 2 more years and see. So where do you see your company 2 years down the line?
The mission remains that we are going to get qualified help in case of emergencies to every Indian store in under 12 minutes, which is the WHO standard. Having said that, there is some way to go, and we've qualified that mission to say that we are going to do that over 30 cities in the next 24 months. So that's where the objective is. If along the way we save a couple of lives, that'll be a great achievement.
Wow. Wonderful. Amit, what are your thoughts about the fantasy now?
So, like I began with, fantasy sports was just one of the levers that we started with. We like to believe that we will continue to be a sports tech organization, which makes more and more people follow sport more. It's not just the only lever to make people follow sport more. In fact, we are working a lot towards sports analytics, nothing to do with fantasy sports. So sports analytics is something that we are working on. And there's a very interesting project that we are working on, probably, which we can talk about slightly later. But that's around making more and more people play and engage more with sport at a very different level, and not at the digital ecosystem that we are talking about right now. So even if we were to talk about the medium term or the long term, I will be very happy as the founder of this business if we are able to make more people follow and engage with sport more. That's
Wonderful. Wonderful, Pankaj.
All right. If I have to sum up this session for myself, I would say, like, I'm working towards a goal, right, where everyone, in my state, right, they can enter in their own free enterprise, where they become their own entrepreneur, right? So nevertheless, if they starting their own business, or maybe they become their own entrepreneur, where they can be financially, they can be sound enough, right? And wherein it will help the economy as well.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks a lot. Your last words.
So our goal going forward in the medium term, so when we launched, we were recovering almost 1 ton of waste every month. Currently, we are at right now 1 ton of waste every single hour, every day that we're recovering. Our goal in the medium term is to recover 100 tons every hour, every single day from all the states from India. So that's our goal going forward.
So wonderful. I think you all enjoyed this session because we had some real emotional and factual discussion with all the four young Turks. And let me assure you that in future also we'll have such panels where we'll bring out the real facts. Thank you, gentlemen, for this wonderful opportunity of moderating this session. Thanks a lot.